Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Kelly Timko from Galarath, and I'll be your moderator for this virtual Lunch and Learn. Welcome to Parametric Estimating, Answers, Advantages, and Tips featuring Dan Kennedy. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to learn something new today with us. All lines have been placed on mute to avoid any background noise. So if you have any questions or you need any help, please use the chat function to speak with me. Today's training is brought to you by Galarath. Galarath is the leader in analytical program management, empowering analysts and organizational leaders to make complex business decisions with confidence through the use of predictive analytics. And you can find us on the web at galarath.com. Please stick around for the live Q&A period at the end, and this will be your opportunity to ask questions and make this session directly relevant to you. And we'll also be providing a link in the chat window to a 2-minute post-event survey. Next Thursday, we'll be giving away a $100 Amazon gift card from the pool of survey respondents. So we want to take a moment to do that. If you're from a government agency, though, and aren't able to accept a gift certificate, we're also happy to donate that amount to a local charity if you're selected. As well, if you know of anyone on your team or in your organization who should be joining us this morning, you can ask them to join us right now by sending them to galarath.live. That's GALORATH.LIVE. Also, all the handouts from this session, a PDF version of today's PowerPoint deck, and a link to today's video when it's ready can also be found at galarath.live. Our next virtual Lunch and Learn will be April 20th at 10 a.m. Pacific. The topic will be building best-in-class costing systems, and you can check galarath.live for information on that as well. Today's training is being recorded and will be available for later viewing. You can, we'll be sending the URL to all the registrants for today, and then you may also share the link with any of your colleagues if you think they would be interested. Today's presenter is Dan Kennedy, Tech Fellow of Engineering Services at Galarath Incorporated. Dan has 30 years of experience in aerospace and defense on major platforms in the manufacturing industry. And prior to working with Galarath, he held the positions of Senior Operations Manager and Senior Program Manager, and was responsible for managing a composites facility producing aerospace subassemblies for aircraft and missile systems. Kennedy also managed numerous proposal activities and production programs for government, commercial, and aerospace customers. And his specialties include program management, manufacturing management, composites, and machining. So with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Dan.
Thank you, Kelly. I have to get that little mute button unmuted on me. Appreciate the introduction, and thank you for hosting this thing. Push me to make sure I get it done and hopefully give these people something to learn today on this Lunch and Learn. As Kelly said, I'm Dan Kennedy from SEER. Today I'm going to talk about cost estimating. I'm going to look at why it's important, how to do it, and what tools you might want to use. Kelly Timko was our MC on this thing. She's going to try and look for your comments and questions, and please put those in. I can go anywhere you would like. This is a bit extemporaneous on my part. She's also going to keep this webcast organized and keep me in between the rails if she can. Make sure that I don't break out into something completely inappropriate. So talk to her. She'll call me, and we'll keep going on this thing. I want to talk about what estimating is, why you want to do it. I'm not a man of letters. I don't have a PhD. Many of you might and may have more in-depth knowledge than I do about what you're doing and why you're doing. I hope I don't offend, and I won't take any offense at your critical assessments of these things. But here we go. This is my philosophy on estimating. As Kelly said, I spent a lot of years in manufacturing management and programs, and estimating is a skill that pays off across the board and has always served me well, being able to do it well. There's some new tools that I didn't have in my day, and they would have been extremely helpful to really set expectations of my managers and my customers and the people I worked with, the other stakeholders in projects and in the organizations. So the first question, of course, is who estimates, and the answer is everyone. You do. NASA does. Elon Musk does. If you're going out for a weekend with the family and going to go do some big adventure, you may have to buy gas. You may know that you're going to go 500 miles and your car gets 25 miles per gallon, so you're going to burn 20 gallons of gas at $10 a gallon, so you got a budget of $200, and you plan around those things. Businesses do the same thing. NASA is getting ready to send a rocket up around the moon, and somebody had to account for all the money they're going to spend on that and make sure that the people that they're serving are satisfied with it. The people who are doing the work have the resources they need. The people who are paying the bills are getting the value that they expect. Elon Musk sent a Tesla out into space, and you got to believe that at some point he asked somebody how much it was going to cost. Maybe he needed to budget for generic caviar or something. I don't know. But whoever is paying is likely going to know how much is this going to cost. And therefore, it's important to understand what it's going to take to do that, because in the final analysis, cost really amounts to how much human effort and how much materials that you're going to put into the process to get a product that you can sell or that you can use. Whether you're a buyer or whether you're a supplier, you're in the transactional mode, and you're going to have to pay a fair amount for what it is that you want or need. Doesn't matter if you're a multi-billion-dollar company that buys and integrates your product, whether you're an aircraft prime in the automotive industry, whether you're buying computers and electronics. You're not going to pay $5,000 for a cell phone when you can buy one for $1,000 if they'll do the same job. If you're going to make it software, if you're on a government project like flying around the moon, if you're supplying products to other companies or producing your own product for sale in the open market, what you've got in common is that you buy stuff or you sell stuff. And understanding how much the stuff you're buying and selling is worth to you and your customers. That's what should cost is. There's some new tools out from my day, at least, that are quite good at helping you make those decisions. Most companies, probably to this day, are still drawing on their history, drawing on their subject matter experts, using Excel spreadsheets, having meetings, and really struggling with trying to understand how much that they have to deliver is going to cost them. They want to make a profit on their work. They want to deliver value to their customers. They don't want their company to go bankrupt. They may be under a firm fixed price contract for somebody, and it's just not going well. And they need to understand where it's not going well, or it may be going extremely well. But at the end of the day, the accountants are going to do their job. They're going to decide whether you made money on this, whether you lost money on this. There's either going to be a parade or there's going to be a witch hunt. So the more you know about what to expect, and the sooner you know it, the better off you're going to be in terms of responding to the challenges. The first casualty of any kind of plan is the plan itself. So plan well, and then use that as a guide to execute. You'll hear the word parametric estimating. It's in my title. And what is parametric estimating? Well, typically parametric estimating uses metrics to represent what you're trying to estimate. It could be weight, could be how big it is, could be where it's going, could be how many lines of code, or how many resistors, capacitors, or ICs, or any number of different things that go into making up your product. And typically you'll have some sort of history on these things. You may have had a similar program. The Apollo program, for instance, might be the basis for the next launch vehicles or the space shuttle. There may be you've bought these products or similar products in the past, and you use those as a yardstick to judge how much this next one is going to cost you. You may have been selling things that look a lot like this, or were made on similar machinery, or took similar processes. And so estimation by similarity is really the basis for most estimates that we do. And it's probably the most important aspect of parametric estimating. If you've got sufficient similar history, it allows for the accurate answer and reduces risks considerably. What is should cost? Should cost is the evaluation of what a thing should cost. If you're buying an Apple iPhone, should cost might be irrelevant. If you're really hard over and have your heart set on an Apple, you're going to pay what Apple can charge you for it. But would an Android phone do you the same job and do as well as the Apple? Perhaps. And those are your judgments to make, and make your judgments on should cost. But really, how much is a specific thing worth? And there's an interesting paper that I read a bit ago, came out some years ago from the Defense Acquisition University. And in that, they contrasted should cost from will cost. The government, of course, spends money that you and I can only imagine, or that our companies can only imagine. And he defined will cost as a reasonable extrapolation of prior efforts. Will cost is when you go to a supplier that you've always gone to, and you know what to expect that he's going to charge you, and put on an escalation year for year, if you will. Those are will costs. Should costs, in this gentleman's opinion, is, and in the government's teachings, are that you should scrutinize every element of cost, and justify each element of the program cost to develop a realistic price objective. And this allows you to negotiate with your suppliers and with the people who are funding you on how much this thing really should cost. As I alluded to a moment ago, an example of will cost is, what did we pay for it or sell it for last time? That's a will cost. You can pretty much bank on that with the escalation. Many times budgets and expectations are established based on this. If you do those things, you may miss the opportunity to improve performance when you take this path. You may miss the opportunity to improve your product or improve your capabilities or your suppliers' capabilities. We've always done it this way, or these folks have always done this for us. You might be doing a disservice to your stakeholders or yourselves, or your suppliers. They need to know that the market is changing and that people are getting better at doing these things, and give them the opportunity to rise to the occasion to deliver to what things should cost. Okay, there's my philosophizing on those things. Couple of different kinds of parametric estimating that I'm familiar with, that our company offers, and that I think are particularly useful. I've used them in the past. Some of them I teach, and they're particularly useful, but they're useful at different times in a product or a project evolution. The first and foremost is going to be your top-down parametrics. They typically use high level metrics, like how big is it and how much does it weigh, and where's it going to go? Is it going to space, or are you going to use it in the bathroom? It kind of depends on what your idea might be and what you might know about it. I've seen estimates, top-down estimates, made successfully from conceptual ideas in a PowerPoint. I've seen them with functional specs. I've seen them being built up accurately and built successfully, with quite small amounts of information, quite frankly. And these typically are based on prior history, similar programs, similar environments. They'll typically include all kinds of information, including what the engineers, what the smart people that are in the program are going to have to do to get ready to actually execute on the program. Their design and engineering effort, what kind of prototypes and testing you may be involved. What's it going to take to integrate a bunch of disparate projects? You might have an aircraft that's got engines, and it's got avionics, and it's got an airframe, and it's environmental controls. Somebody has to sit down and think about uh, whether those things are going to bolt together and whether they're going to function properly, whether you're going to move enough air through the cabin to keep people from catching COVID, or to make sure they don't freeze to death or cook. Um, Oftentimes they will integrate the schedule in these things that will tell you, give you a hint as to how many people you're going to have to apply to the project to complete it in the time that you have to do that. These are top-down parametric estimating tools. They're really very good, and they cover what we tend to call total life cycle costs. It's particularly effective when the information is limited. Early in the project, when you, like I say, might be working off performance specifications, might only have conceptual designs in mind. They're very useful for establishing budgets and schedules, going through gate reviews with upper management on whether you want to pursue this activity or not. Um, an upfront idea of where the problems might lie, planning the work breakdown structure, and then communicating that with stakeholders, either the people who are going to build it and execute on it, or the people that are going to fund it and manage it, or the people who are going to receive what you deliver, and whether they're going to be happy with it, whether you've got all of the things they wanted um, encompassed in your project. Program project managers, they're keenly interested. I have been on the wrong end of some of those programs where when you build the first unit and you finally complete the first unit, and the finance people absolutely lose their mind because you are many times over what the average production unit cost was anticipated to be. You've got $7 million into a project that you're only making $3 million on, and the finance people are losing their mind and losing sleep and making your life miserable because they don't understand that the first one is going to be harder than the subsequent ones. You're going down a learning curve on these things. Senior management needs to be prepared for this kind of news as well, and to give you the resources that you need to go ahead and be successful at the program. Functional managers, they need to know what you expect of them. How many engineers am I going to need? How many machine tools am I going to need? What's the tool string look like? Again, the finance guys, they're the ones that gave me the most grief in my life for the most part, because they're watching the cash flow, and they need to. It's their job. So giving them some sort of expectation of what they're likely to see can be critical in making your life easier and making the lives of all these people easier. Of course, the planners and the schedulers are going to need to know, so that they know when these things are likely to happen and how big a project is going to be. Engineers are critically important, particularly when you get to things like design to cost or design for manufacture, or questions like that. They need to get involved early in the program so that they can help steer the designs or the execution of these things the way they need to go. So really there's a ton of stakeholders in these things. The quality of your estimates, the way that you communicate that information to these different stakeholders and different users is important. And the quality, like I say, the quality of the information is key to these things. The number one reason why it's important is probably communication. You need to set the expectations of all stakeholders, the management, in terms of the cost, and the scope, and the schedule, and your customers. And if nothing else, when you sit down with your customers and review your program, review what you're going to do, demonstrating that you understand the effort, the associated costs, could be very, very helpful. Lets them talk with you frankly about your performance, and your estimate at completion, your estimate to complete, what it's going to cost them, whether you're going to be on schedule, that you've recognized all the things that you're supposed to do. So doing a robust analysis on these things is in terms of communication, very, very important. Letting your staff know what will they need to accomplish and when. That's important. And then if you're dealing with with suppliers, people who are going to provide you with goods or services to achieve your goals. You need to be able to communicate effectively with what your expectations of them are, when they're going to have to provide those things. Let them staff up, let them get the talent and the resources and the tools that they're going to need to be able to deliver to you. And those can all be encompassed in an estimate, even a top-down estimate where you're not entirely certain about what's going to happen. It forms a good baseline. It forms a good benchmark for you to manage from, and for you to be able to react when things don't appear to be going the way you want them. The next type of estimating, the one that I get involved with most, is what we call a bottom-up estimating. Now, the bottom-up estimating typically uses different kind of metrics. You typically will have a lot more information, a lot more detailed information. The classic use for bottom-up estimating is really when you're looking at hot spots that have been identified in some of your components or some of your subsystems, or if you're out procuring things and they're not coming in on budget, or maybe they're coming in on budget and you want to know why. But typically you've got detailed engineering available for you to go ahead and make those estimates on. There'll be drawings or specifications or even CADs. CAD data is ideal. There's some tools out there that make effective use of CAD data. You typically know what materials you're going to build this thing out of, what kind of processes are going to be involved, what the application is. An aircraft wing is much different than a child's toy. The point is here, they're typically task-oriented estimates, meaning that you're going to be putting a part up on a machine tool, and you're going to be machining away material, or putting it into a clean room and laying up composite materials, or putting it on a wave soldering line and soldering a bunch of components onto a PC board. These are task metrics, and there's a lot of good data out there about what a task takes. That's what industrial engineers do. That's what manufacturing process engineers do. There's a lot of folks that worry about how to do that effectively, affordably, and reliably, meaning that the quality that you want is there. And so bottoms-up estimates typically require a bit more work, in some cases a lot more work, but they're extremely detailed cost analyses. You'll be able to point to tolerances of holes, or the form and fit and the assembly difficulty of different components. There are precise cost elements that actually will go ahead and form what some people might call a manufacturing plan, or a job shop. And it'll show you where the hot spots are in terms of costs, or what sort of capabilities that you might need to bring on board to successfully complete those tasks. Importantly, they enable trade studies. Your company may be trying to evaluate whether they're going to build in-house or go outside and buy it. And understanding what is involved, the hours and the materials and the processes that you're going to employ, can help you make these build or buy decisions. You might be wanting to evaluate alternative materials and processes. Or you may look at going to suppliers overseas. And these tools allow you to do those kind of what-if trade studies against what you're trying to build. So bottoms up, my preference, but they can get very complex when you get into large systems and things like that. So they're not for everybody. They're not for every part of the project, but they're very, very effective and very, very helpful. When is bottoms up effective? When the information you have is more mature, when the technical or procurement decisions are being made, when you're designing details, where you're evaluating sizes and tolerances, where you're defining processes, where you might be conducting trade studies, where you've got a baseline that, for whatever reason, perhaps your parts are not coming in as inexpensively as you had hoped, as you had planned for. You can start doing trades on those things and negotiating with your suppliers on those things. When you're evaluating the bids that you're getting from your suppliers, when you, if somebody is giving you a price that you don't believe can be made, either high or low, you can start asking questions. And if you have a good understanding of what these things should cost, you can ask the questions. Perhaps they have a fabulous new process that makes things inexpensive to do what you're asking them to do. It may be they didn't read the specifications and the requirements, and they really are underestimating what it's going to take to make this part. You don't want to put them out of business. You want good suppliers. By the same token, you don't want to be left with needing a component that they can't deliver. So many of my clients go ahead and they use those as a window to find out the range of expectations they have from different suppliers. And if they're not inside that range, they start asking questions about why do you think these don't cost this much? Are you buying the job, or you didn't read the requirements? Why is it that they cost so little, or why is it they cost so much? All estimates are just estimates. They're not cast in stones, and you may learn something when you discuss it with them that, hey, you've asked for this. This is really hard. This is why it costs so much. It's really, again, a communication tool with your stakeholders, be it the managers, the engineers, the suppliers. These can form the basis of very good communication tools. Again, the same people are on that who needs it most list. Program project managers, if there's going to be a problem, they want to know. If they're going to have favorable budget variances, they ought to know that as well. Estimators, of course, are the ones that are on the pointy end of this thing and need to understand, they need these tools. Functional managers, the finance folks, planners, schedules, engineers, and then suppliers. This is a good tool for talking to your suppliers who, in many cases, particularly if you're a prime where 70% of your stuff is being bought and integrated, you need to be negotiating with your suppliers to make sure that you're getting the right should cost on those things. Many of our clients are using these should cost estimated estimates to evaluate their parts and assemblies. They're particularly, the ones that I'm involved with, are particularly useful in terms of bottoms up estimates. Many of our clients own the engineering, meaning that they did the design work on these things. They have design authority. They know what they're asking for. They know what they need. They know what they want. They may even have purchase history, but they're looking for savings. You want to analyze the costs, look for your internal cost, or whether you're going to purchase these things possibly overseas, go to Mexico, go to China, go to some of these other foreign countries that have lower labor rates. You can do those trades against those things. You can look at different processes. As I say, you can validate the price, and many of the people that I work with are successfully negotiating with their suppliers based on should cost data. I use it regularly. The tool that I use has very robust process metrics, and what you get is a clear manufacturing process planning and reporting, and there's a common language that you can use for negotiations. And here's an example. Those of you that might want to try and enlist the support of your upper management or others in the supply chain, here's a white paper that we have published, and one of our clients has allowed us to use some of this data. Can't tell you who they are, but they're a major aerospace and defense contractor, and they have been using bottoms up estimating now for about 6 years as a negotiation tool in their supply chain between them and the suppliers. And here's an example of how they have improved their bottom line with a relatively small investment in should cost estimating and focusing on where their needs lie in terms of becoming more profitable. Costs always increase. Companies oftentimes look to their internal staff cuts or reducing their capabilities and outsourcing things. But in this particular case, the first year the client engaged us and started using these tools, they got a 10-to-1 return on their investment, or nearly so. And that trend has continued year over year. In fact, they have changed their estimating group, their procurement group, from a cost center to a profit center. Even in large corporations, $8 million is a lot of money. So, and they came right out of the chute making money on this stuff. So, there's my case for estimating, why you should care, what some of the tools are. As I said, I'm not a man of letters. I don't have my PhD, but I gave you my philosophy. I'm a Bachelor of Science Mechanical Engineering, and that BS me thing isn't often the right thing to put on the end of your name. So those are my thoughts on this, and I would gladly entertain your questions. There really are no tips and tricks associated with these things. There's no tricks. Doing estimates accurately is a skill that takes a lot of effort. Not a lot of effort. There's tools out there that make it much less onerous and much easier to do. We offer some of them. Some of the people on this webinar may as well. And I promise I won't share your names with who they are, so you don't get unwanted emails. But it's worthwhile work, and we all do it, and it's important to all of us, both on a personal level and as a professional level. The companies we work for need our estimates. They need clear thoughts, clear ideas, clear communications, good estimates from us on what it's going to take to do a thing. I'd suggest that you do estimating systematically and thoughtfully. Spend the time it takes to be as right as you can be. Remember, they're estimates. They're not cast in stone. And use tools that are effective. As I say, there's a number of them out there. We offer some. I tend to favor the ones that we offer, but whatever works for you. If you still want to buy off your procurement history or sell off your sales history, use Excel spreadsheets, drag people into meetings and have meetings about what you really mean and what it really takes, and you continue to do that, whether it's either in a top-down method or a bottoms-up. We've got some tools that can help you on both of those. Wherever you are, just give us a call. We'd be glad to have a chat with you and see if there's something that we can do. If we're a good fit, give us a call. And there's my philosophy on estimating and why it's important and what you might be able to do about it. So on this, I'm going to turn it over back to Kelly and let her.
All right, great. Thank you, Dan.
Manage the questions.
Thank you very much. Okay, so before we dive into the live Q&A, I just want to let everybody know that we will be dropping a link into the chat that has the post-event survey. And also remind you that the PDF version of today's deck will be available at the end of the 2-minute post-event survey. So please take time to look for that. Also, please go ahead and submit all of your questions using the Q&A button, and we will be going through those. Also, okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and see what we have. So first question has come through. Okay, so Dan, regarding the slide on bottom up, the last bullet on alternate suppliers and evaluating overseas suppliers, can you elaborate on the costs in addition to manufacturing that should be included in a business case for international alternate suppliers, such as shipping costs from another country or import fees and taxes and additional delay that may occur?
Oh my, yes, yes, the costs are going to be different. You cannot simply evaluate the prevailing labor rates that are associated with manufacturing. Um, Depending on what industry you're in, you're probably not, you may not be just unloading stuff off a cargo container and repackaging it and selling it. If you're in my industry, which is the aerospace and defense, you may need to have people on site over there supervising your quality people, your technical people over there to support those kind of operations. And those are some additional costs that you're going to have to recognize. I don't have great metrics because they are industry specific, but you'll probably have to put some additional effort into managing an overseas supplier. You'll certainly have shipping costs associated with that. And in today's world, those shipping costs are pretty volatile right now. Um, yeah, import tariffs. I think that the A&D world, there are regulations and hoops that you're going to have to jump through. They're going to add additional costs if you're going overseas on some of these things. So yeah, recognize those, put those in as a work element. The tools that I use have the ability to add those additional elements. They are going to be on a case-by-case basis. If you're bringing them in from south of the border or north of the border, it may not be great. If you're bringing them in from China, it may be significant. So yeah, I would certainly put that in your work breakdown planning in terms of recognizing that those are additional scope that may not be in the technical performance specifications that you're looking at. So yeah, consider those in your estimates.
All right, thank you. Is it fair to say that should cost is the government customer task?
No, absolutely not. Now the government, and perhaps you're looking to my allusion from the Government Acquisition University, but the government, as they spend an inordinate amount of, they spend a lot of money, and so they're keenly interested in making sure that we taxpayers are satisfied with what they're doing, and the idea of a $600 hammer doesn't sit well with those folks. So yes, the government is becoming more and more involved in making sure that they're getting good value for the money of our money that they're spending. But industry is really more keenly interested, I think, in making sure that they preserve their profits or improving their bottom lines. So I think that they're probably a bit more nimble than the government. And no, it's just not a government thing. It's everybody's involved. Yeah, you and I are involved. We need to provide a service that's valuable and worth what they're paying us to do. So.
Okay, thank you. Does SEER use raw material cost dynamically based on the market conditions?
Dynamically is kind of a slippery word. Yes, we do. We update materials. If you have updates on materials and you can dynamically update, we certainly allow you to do those things. Market prices, I think everybody has realized in the last month or so, are spiraling badly, and we do not refresh our material costs as quickly as you might hope. So yes, if you're doing estimates and material is a big component or a critical component or something you're concerned about, I'm not going to give you today's market price for steel or aluminum or titanium. As a responsible estimator, you're going to need to make those considerations yourself, I'm afraid.
Okay. Let's see. Does this tool integrate with MBSE models?
We've done some work here recently on model-based systems engineering, model-based engineering in general, and we have in the SEER tools at least, and I'm not certain of others, we have export capabilities that our software designers use, and we made those available to our clients. We can train you on their use if you need to, but yes, there are elements inside the SEER tools that we're calculating that are based on our metrics, based on our knowledge bases, that are easily extracted and exported to different tools. A recent effort that we undertook was through a product lifecycle management tool, those kind of tools. This particular one was called Cameo. And what we were looking at was how to get change identified inside one of these tools and then pushed out into the estimating tool and automatically update the new costs and feeding it back to the program people, to the engineers, to the procurement folks, and let them know what to expect for this change, good or bad, whether it's going to get more expensive or less expensive. So yes, again, they're on a case-by-case basis. We don't support interfaces with all of these different tools that you might use, but yes, it can be done.
Okay, thank you. I just also got a note from Karen McRitchie, our VP of Development, that said that we also have model center interfaces that support MBSE. So that's another note. Go ahead.
This is our high-powered, very smart lady that runs our development group. So yes, she knows better than I.
Okay, Dan, are you familiar with Practical Software and System Measurement website?
I am
yes,
not.
MSC? No, okay. All right, here's another question for you. How does the current political climate, Russia, Ukraine, and policies and tariffs imposed to China and others, how can those be taken into consideration in the costs for raw material processes? Same with like the pandemic and maybe other cost impact situations.
Yes, again, these things are, and sadly, I don't have current data on the price of gasoline, to tell you the truth. These things are moving so fast that it's really hard to keep up. This is going to get into your estimating, your real estimating philosophy, whether you want to recognize those risks. If you're engaging in a long-term contract right now, I would certainly put escalation in as a negotiating point for your estimates. The hours are probably not going to change a lot. The quantity of materials are probably not going to change a lot, but the costs associated with your labor costs, labor hours, and your material costs are going to be difficult, and particularly the shipping costs. I'm like you. I've read that shipping costs have doubled or trebled in the last few months, and certainly some of the materials like nickel and titanium are spiral, and oil for that matter are getting very expensive. So I would suggest that you go ahead and recognize those things. Inside the SEER tools, we have certain factors that that drive a risk assessment inside SEER, and I would take full use of those. I would add elements in there that reflect those kind of risks that you might experience, and then allow the people who are doing the negotiations, upper management who are planning for contingencies, show them those risks and let them make judgments about what's best for their company.
Can you estimate agile software development within your tools?
Oh boy, Karen McRitchie, I hope you're listening. Yes, we do. We have some packages that are specifically address agile. Sadly, I'm not an expert on agile. I'm a knuckle dragging manufacturing guy, and but Karen McRitchie, I'm pretty sure will answer the affirmative that agile is an important part of our suite of offerings. So
yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. Give us a call, and I can hook you up with some expert on that if you really are going after that.
All right, here's another one for you, Dan. Can you please tell about how we might account for the shipping costs in SEER?
Well, in SEER for manufacturing, at least, which is the one that I am very fluent in, we have these things called additional items. And in additional items, it's a work element in of its own, and you can go ahead and you can put in a range of expected cost in those things. and it's just another process inside the SEER for manufacturing suite of tools. We cover all kinds of tools: machining, additive manufacturing, composites, finishing, and additional items. I would include inside the shipping work element, to tell you the truth, and put a range of expected values in those things so that you reflect some of the risk that might come from your shipping process.
Okay, here's another one for you. Do you have any advice on how to convince program management the value of parametric estimating for sheet cost analyses, for trade studies? If their attitude is that we don't need this type of formal analysis, we have SMEs, who can give a ballpark answer.
Yeah, well, okay. Again, most of my late nights and my sleepless nights were as a program manager and operations director, and you really don't go to bed at night not being confident that things are under control. If you don't have a good, robust plan, if you don't know what to expect, if you don't have some sort of view into the future, it'll keep you up at nights, and there'll be people angry with you all the time. So from a program perspective, understanding what your costs are and what your expectations might be, and knowing how many people you're going to have to put on the job. In terms of program management, that's where you gain your mental, you get your mental capacity back. Not having sleepless nights. The biggest problems that you're going to have in program management, of course, are cost, scope, and schedule. That's the holy trinity of the program management world. So if you have a good understanding of costs, then the costs are derived from the scope of your project. And costs, of course, include time and materials that you're going to spend, and the schedule is the time that you have to spend on that. So if you've got a program manager, if you've got a full cadre of SMEs who do this for a living and who are just experts at it, perhaps you don't need this. If you're happy with the way things are going, good. Don't let us force ourselves on you. If you're getting awakened at night because things aren't going well, that you lost a piece of equipment you need, that you got a customer who's unhappy with what you delivered, with a finance guy who thinks you're going to break the company, and you want to communicate effectively with them, satisfy yourself that you've got this thing planned well and that you're executing well, you may have to be doing earned value analysis, and your SMAs may tell you that, yeah, we're right on schedule, but unless you can point to some sort of tangible evidence and discuss how you're hitting your financial and schedule objectives, then as a program manager, you don't have a plan. You can't speak intelligently to those things. So program managers are probably in the most critical need of these tools as anybody in the organization. So, if you've got a specific case and if you'd like to reach out to me, I'd be glad to have a chat with your program manager and let him know my thoughts on that. I've been awakened and had many sleepless nights and ulcers and things like that as a program manager. So.
All right. Thank you, Dan. Another question for you. When in the life cycle of a program or product development is parametric modeling most useful?
Well, go back to look at the presentation. It kind of depends on the maturity level of them. Parametric estimating, parametrics are metrics that you use to make estimates of really the cost and the schedule based on the scope. So if you are very early in the program, 10 years ago, Elon Musk probably decided he wanted to launch one of his cars in space, and all he had was an idea. You grab a few metrics like how much does a Tesla weigh, and is the space helmet going to cost a bunch of money? But he already had the rocket. So in the conceptual stages, top-down parametric estimating can be very effective. It'll give you a very good roadmap going through. If you're going to do gate reviews and and start to set baseline budgets. Top down is really what you should use first, just to get your arms around the scope of the project. As I say, after the project matures, after you get more details, when you start looking at building, for instance, the launch cradle for the Tesla car, that becomes a specific piece of hardware. And that's when bottom-up estimating is probably going to be most helpful. I mean, you already know how much the rocket's going to cost. You already know how much the Tesla is going to cost. You already know where you want to put it. So at that point, you start doing detailed analyses on things like the launch cradle that's going to go up on top of the rocket. And you might use top-down to capture all the engineering work that's going to go in there, but then you're going to go and solicit bids for somebody to fabricate the cradle that you're going to put the Tesla on and shoot it out into space. So they're different tools. They're effective at different times. I would say that in the gate review section and the conceptual design section, you should be using top-down. When you get into really managing costs, and particularly if you're dealing with deviations from what your expectations were, that's when you should probably go into the bottoms up and look at the fine detail.
Okay. During interaction with an ICE or standing review board, how do you handle when the ICE wants to dive deeper into a specific estimate detail when you've used the parametric estimate, which is a higher level?
Well, yeah, so the fundamental assumption on a top-down, for instance, is that you are going almost exclusively as a estimation by similarity, meaning that you have prior history on those things. And when you're negotiating with the ICE, then you will look at your prior history assumptions, the baseline, your knowledge base of what was done before, what the variances to then to now might be, and what your assumptions were for why those costs are different, whether they're higher or lower. And so that's where you do the stand-up, defending your estimate to the authorities and the people who are funding you. It's much easier if you're on a bottom-up type of estimate, because you can point to the specific process and point to the data that you have for those tasks. It's a little more difficult. You need to be a little more abstract as you're doing the top-down defense.
Okay. So I just want to make a comment. If anyone, wants us to elaborate more on anything and they'd like to see any type of demonstration on any of the tools, then please contact us on the side, and we can be able to set up something that would be most relevant for your situation.
Yeah.
So I had a couple of questions in that regard.
You're right. These can be very specific. The ICE is fairly specific. If you're going into justifications to review boards.
Exactly. Okay, so that wraps it up for all of our questions for today. So I just want to go ahead again and thank everybody for attending. And remember to click on the exit survey link in the chat window. That way you can provide us some feedback on today's sessions, and you'll be able to suggest topics for upcoming session. And you'll also be able to download today's presentation and enter to win the $100 Amazon gift card. Also, don't forget to check galarath.live for the upcoming April webinar details. And you'll also be able to get the latest updates and videos and the handouts from all of our past sessions as well on there. So I'm going to keep the webinar window open for another minute or so you can be sure you have a moment to access that survey link. And the survey link will also be emailed out to everyone as well if you happen to miss it. So thank you again, everyone, for attending. And thank you, Dan, for the presentation. And we hope to see you next time.
Thanks, Kelly, and hi to all you folks I know and work with on a regular basis. I appreciate you being here, and those of you who are new, come back. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me philosophize about estimating. So have a good day.
Excellent.
And we hope to see you soon.
Thanks, guys.